In this video, we will talk about why is the end of the movie one of the worst endings, and why Neve hates black people. We will talk about the strengths and weaknesses of the movie, so watch the video to the end to see why Neve hates black people. With this movie having an abrupt ending, and quite literally going full circle, let's recap, break down, and explain all that there was to take away from this movie. So let's get into it. What's the story? The story follows Neve, which derives from the Latin word nevis, meaning snow. In The Strays, a black woman, Ashley Madekwe, faces hardship because this is a woman who literally wants to be white, of institutionalized racism and marginalization. Around the year 2003, she decides to leave her poverty-stricken family, including her 2 children, to start a new life. She leaves that situation for a better life. But many years later, once that life is achieved, her past comes back to haunt her. Will she be able to escape again? So if you want to follow a completely unlikable character for about an hour and a half, this is a great story for you. We saw that Cheryl had become Neve, and she was drastically different to how we saw her in the past. She was living in quite a well-off area which was predominantly white. She'd married a different man and had 2 children. It was clear to see that she was trying to hide her true self and doing all that she could to fit into this new neighborhood, even if it meant pretending to not be who she was. Her skin color was something that she was trying to bury beneath and almost cover up, due to what she had encountered in the past, leading her to feel uncomfortable in society. She was wearing straight head wigs to hide her natural hair. She changed her voice to become more well-spoken due to the area. And to quote her daughter, she made sure that nobody would ever talk about anything black. Although Neve later tells us she was in an abusive relationship, hence why she left, she makes no effort to contact her kids. So not only did she leave them but left them with an abusive father, she could also be completely lying. As we'll find out throughout the story, Neve lies and keeps secrets more than Usopp in one piece. Neve's shunning of her children parallels the shunning of her black identity. She wears a wig to hide her hair, gloves to hide her skin, and practices a posh accent. Marries a white man, doesn't like her daughter's hair in cornrows, and has her son Sebastian puts it. Is it any good? Unfortunately, this disappointing thriller reinforces common stereotypes about black men and black mothers. Despite being based on a true story, The Strays at best tries yet fails to comment on unjust racial inequalities that led to people making bad life decisions. At worst, this movie can be understandably seen as irresponsible for the ways it depicts black men and black mothers. The first half of the film is accompanied by a near-constant and ominous score that's meant to dramatize what Cheryl/Neve is feeling inside, which is presumably terror that her past, as a real black woman, will be found out in her current affluent and white environment. But this treatment only reinforces the tired and racist alignment of black women with being crazy. The film also doesn't address in a smart way how all the white people in the film seem unbelievably rational, calm, and perfectly fine, while anytime blackness appears, like in the form of a black man, ominous music plays, threatening shots jolt the viewer, and violence happens almost instantly. This is particularly offensive when the former children of Cheryl/Neve do actually appear, beyond her initial crazy visions of them. Inexplicably, the now adult man and younger sister that Cheryl/Neve abandoned to a bad, abusive father back in her past life actually return with menace to terrorize their mother and her new family. With venom and violence, the man teaches his stepbrother how to smoke cigarettes, get high, weed, and commit violence by beating up a racist peer. This man is often shown angry and violent, ultimately torturing and killing the white father, which only further emphasizes how blackness equals criminality and violence. Many children are abandoned but don't grow up wishing violence and terror on their abandoners. Why tell this story? Why tell it in this way and from this perspective? What does the viewer come away with? For some, this movie will be simply a failure in that it's a thriller that builds up to an unsatisfying and empty climax. But for others, this movie will be straight up offensive, racist, and irresponsible. Is it any weak? This is where the movie runs into its biggest problem, and that it tries to be both a drama and a psychological thriller. The mystery behind Carl and Dione's sudden presence does generate some dramatic intrigue as to how they connect to Neve, but it loses its impact when the movie presents them as sort of stalker-like slasher villains. There will be long stretches of time where nothing happens, and then all of a sudden evil freak out and see and hear things that others don't. I didn't understand why the movie chose this hybrid presentation, because it leaves its patient and tension all over the place, especially since Carl and Dione don't deserve to be made out as villains in the first place. It's a shame, because there are things the movie gets right as a thriller. I love how the music changes in certain scenes, as it goes from Ned's classical music to this dark ambience that takes over the mood, and the way the cinematography is framed in certain shots gives this feeling of unease, like something disturbing is about to be revealed or uncovered. Sadly, the potential payoff for this is wasted with how disappointingly shallow it is and how it observes its story and themes. Everything that's covered, from racism, the child abandonment to wealth, is only examined at surface level. So while the attempts to address them are admirable, they only go so far. At the very least, the movie story is structured well in spite of how sloppy the actual writing within it is. It's paced out in 5 sections, with the first and last sort of serving as bookends for everything that happens in between. And this gave a relative sense of consistency as to how Carl and Dione try to worm their way into Neve's lives, and how she tries to keep them away. I could mostly tolerate the weird portrayal of the characters up until a final, which was just straight up bizarre to the point of being comical. Any sort of nuances it may have had at that point with its observations on classism and racism went completely out the window in that scene. And I don't like saying that, because this movie clearly has its heart in the right place as far as trying to address racial identity and the consequences that come with changing and or conforming with it. If it had been presented as just a drama with some psychological elements, it might have been fine. But as a thriller horror flick, and ends up with too many tonal inconsistencies for me to take it seriously. Ending explained. If you haven't watched the movie yet, turn away immediately since there are major spoilers coming. In the last chapter, family reunion, Carl and Dione invade Neve's house and kidnap the family, holding them prisoner. They want the entire extended family to gather to celebrate Dione's birthday with Chinese takeout. Carl admits that Neve attempted to settle the debt, and Dione immediately requests a divorce from her. During a stressful round of Scrabble, Carl forces Dione to bench too much weight in the home gym, and when Carl refuses to assist, Dione is crushed by the weights. As everything is going on, supper is delivered, and Neve welcomes the delivery person. She instructs Dione, Sebastian, and Abigail to wait while she goes to tip the driver. But Neve leaves the home and boards the driver's motorcycle to make another getaway before she can return. Neve examines herself in the mirror before she does so, in a nod to the acts she performed at the beginning of the film before leaving her prior life. Medically admitted to Digital Spy that the prologue and callback weren't part of the original screenplay. That is, in my opinion, a crucial addition. You can kind of look at a work like this and ask, well, how can we improve this? I believe one of those things is providing a little bit of the history she spoke up. The final act in the pause to examine oneself in the mirror then came first, and quite naturally from the exit. Neve said, "I love that, let's do it every time." As I departed and turned to look at him, that was included when we shot the additional sequence. She is confronting herself, which is a positive moment for the character. In my opinion, Carl, Dione, Sebastian, and Abigail are all shown standing together in the film's closing frame. Now connected by a shared abandonment, might a future film have the newly expanded band of stray animals locating whatever Neve has transformed into at this time. This is one of the worst ending on divorce. A bad ending, and I didn't expect it to happen, because the movie was good all the time.